And welcome to this mayoral debate tonight. I'm your host, Doug Jardine. We welcome you. We welcome our two candidates, Mr. Brandon Stevenson and Mr. Mike Caldwell. And we welcome the folks in the audience who are all family members of the candidates. We hope that they don't do the wave. If they do, they'll keep it down. We have a 6-question format tonight. We'll ask questions on a variety of topics. The candidates will have a 2-minute response period, and then the other candidate who answered first will also have a 1-minute rebuttal period. I know that the audience will be way under control. We'd ask you to be polite. If you want to give them a round of applause right now because they did make it through the primary process and here they are, then feel free to do that to start. I should also note at this point that we did invite write-in candidate Patrick Conlon to join us, but Mr. Conlon did not show up, and so we will continue with the two who actually went through the primary process and are here this evening. We chose numbers to start, and we will begin with Mr. Brandon Stevenson. Candidate Stevenson, if you would take 2 minutes and introduce yourself, and then Mr. Caldwell will do the same.
Thank you. My name is Brandon Stevenson. I'm running for mayor, and I think that most of the people that will be watching this on Channel 17 probably just want to know 2 questions. First of all, can I do it? And second of all, what will I do? And so I think that my introduction will be related to those 2 questions. First, I've been on the City Council for the last 8 years, and I understand how the city works. I understand the way that government functions, sometimes slowly, and I think that it is very important that the next mayor of Ogden City, that he understand how the city government works. In addition to that, I'm educated at Weber State University with a master's degree in business administration. I understand how business works and the theory behind it. I've also got 25 years in the private sector experience, several as a small business owner, owned a couple of small retail furniture stores for several years, sold them to finish my education. And the last 15 or so years, I've been a corporate control manager for a wholesale lumber distribution company. And I think what that business background in the private sector has given me is a strong feeling that government needs to move faster than it does. And I'll use my skills and understanding in order to make that happen. In addition to that, I think that Ogden City is a wonderful place, and I am excited for the opportunity to run and work with many, many good people in Ogden in order to improve the community and to make it a better place for me and for my family and for neighbors and friends and all of us.
Thank you, sir, but I do have 6 questions. Are you going to stick around for the other 4, even though you only wanted to answer 2?
No, we're good. I'll stick around.
Welcome. We're glad you're here. Mr. Caldwell.
Thank you, Doug. I appreciate the opportunity to continue talking about what's important to us here. I appreciate everybody being here this evening. I'm running for mayor because I believe Ogden City is one of the most unique places in the United States to live, work, and play. For the last 10 years, I've worked with a number of different community organizations to bring about economic revitalization and a new energy and rebranding of this community. Last year, for example, I think it's critical as we bring in a new CEO of this community, we have somebody that can build communities and excitement. It's not one person that's going to rebrand this community and keep that energy moving forward. You need to bring a lot of different people to the table and to get emotionally invested in doing that. Last year, I was president of an organization that had 16,000 volunteer hours that we coordinated, brought 70,000 different people downtown for different events to showcase what we have and what makes us so unique. This next mayor, I believe this is a real important crossroads for us. We need to have somebody that can reach across different boundaries, bring Weber State, Weber County together, some of our key agencies. It's critical we find somebody that can bring all of those groups together to keep moving forward. And I've got the experience in doing that. I've been the president, CEO, or board chair of 4 different community organizations that have been very critical in carrying that forward. I'll bring that energy and enthusiasm into the office and look forward to the challenges that come with that. I don't come from Ogden City. I'll come with fresh ideas and a new approach. I think that's critical. We've had 12 years now of one administration. I think it's ready to have some new ideas and a fresh approach, and I bring that having been with Weber County for the last number of years.
Thank you very much. I forgot I have to push my mic on, and you guys have that advantage over me. Well, here we go. To our format then, the initial question, 2 minutes of answer time for each candidate, with the candidate answering first, also having then a minute for rebuttal afterwards. Mr. Caldwell, the first question is yours. With the poor economy, if there are budget shortfalls, what would be the first thing you would cut, and why?
I think it's important that we sit immediately with the City Council and look at all different department areas. There's fat you can trim in a number of different places. It's critical we look at the whole picture. Budgets won't start until months into this new administration's term. Those come around the June timeframe, so you'll have a number of months to look into every single department and organization and find areas that we think we have a little extra to cut and we can lean up and operate more efficiently. Where we would start would be to bring everybody together and really look through each of those departments. I don't come in with a sword in hand looking to start slicing and dicing immediately. It'd be a very thoughtful, careful approach. As we went in, we've had 3 years of real difficult economic times, and I think to go in with the sword and start dicing before you really took the time to understand each of those departments' special needs is a little irresponsible. So we'd take a thoughtful, careful approach and measure everything very, very carefully.
Mr. Stevenson, and please don't hesitate to ask me to repeat the question if you'd like me to. No problem at all. Brandon?
Thank you. I think with my experience over the last 8 years on the City Council, there have been probably a dozen times where we've had to actually cut the budget for various reasons or another. One of the largest reasons why we would be forced to cut the budget is because of the sales tax revenue isn't hitting the projections that we expected, and that's easy for us to track on a quarterly basis, which is actually true of the last 3 months that we've been tracking. So I think that probably the very best approach in a situation like that is because the business is the momentum in the city is moving and the budget is determined. The easiest way to deal with the issue is to connect with the directors of the city, those who are responsible for their departments, and ask them to contribute a certain percent from their department to make up those issues. And if those department heads have specific issues with problems or areas where they can't cut, then we'll have to sit down and determine where that money will come from. And I think it's kind of an iterative process where we're going to be going through and connecting with various people in the administration in order to determine where the best places are to take a little bit more and the best places are to take a little bit less. And of course, all of that is ultimately going to end up on the City Council's plate as well in terms of funding and how that works. So connecting with the City Council, making sure that's communicated and that those issues are brought up front and asking for ideas and thoughts is an important part of the process also.
Would you like a rebuttal period of a minute?
I've also managed 3 different Weber County departments through this recession and $5 million in annual budget. So we've drilled into that. I've weathered that the same. We've worked with every single department in those 3 different departments I've managed. We've cut staff in some areas when needed and leaned up in a number of different areas. So I certainly have a lot of experience drilling into those economic hardships that we've all had to weather over the past, really, 4 years.
Thank you very much. On to question 2, and Mr. Stevenson, this one's to you first. What do you believe are the 2 largest and biggest issues facing the city, and how would you address those 2 issues?
The two largest issues.
I said largest, biggest because it slipped out. Let's just stick with largest issues facing the city.
Okay. Well, I think probably the 2 largest issues that are facing the city are first, bringing jobs to our community, and second is the economic revitalization of our downtown and our business sector. And when I talk about bringing jobs into Ogden, I think that the current administration has been very, very successful in making Ogden really a stellar place for jobs. And I think that, in fact, one of the top places in the country for bringing jobs into our community. And that should be applauded. But the way that our current administration is set up, they'll bring, just if they continue doing what they're doing right now, about 1,000 jobs a year approximately. What my change in focus would be in relationship to bringing jobs into the community would be tweaking it so that it's not quantity of jobs we're looking for, but quality of jobs, because I think it's the higher paying jobs that we're after. An example of this would be targeting specific companies that would fill the empty office space. We have the infrastructure, meaning we've got empty Class A office space all over the downtown that can be filled if the businesses come to fill it. So Ogden's got some wonderful selling points. It's just a matter of going to those businesses in the regional area and maybe other targeted areas across the nation, and inviting and selling Ogden to those businesses so they can come and bring higher paying jobs into our downtown and filling that empty office space. The second part of it was rejuvenating the downtown area, and that means we create a walkable, unique area where we continue the projects that are already happening. We're continuing to fill out the junction, and the hotel is going up right now, Garden Hilton, in addition to the River Project area, which needs to continue, and the other development that's on tap needs to continue to happen. Along the east side of Washington Boulevard is an important part. And then we can't forget retail, which has to happen along, not just in the downtown, but also along corridors such as Wall Avenue and 12th Street. So those are all very important things that my administration will address.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Caldwell.
Jobs and economic development is tip of tongue for everybody right now. It affects every one of us. It is something that I think this next administration really needs to continue to focus on. That being said, what's been done by Ogden City in the last number of years is very commendable. We were recognized just 2 weeks ago in the Standard Examiner by an outside agency as the second best community in the nation at job growth. Part of that is because I think we've focused on local opportunities. 80% of job growth in the community occurs from local businesses that are existing here already. Making sure they have the support they need and you understand what their issues are is critical. I bring together a collection of those business owners from unique parts in the community. 1900 West has some unique industrial businesses, the BDO, the downtown core, people from Weber State, and have a group that gives advice and talks about what their needs are so we can address those needs and make sure that that 80% of local job growth continues here. We would also move the Economic Development Department as a direct report under the mayor. That's something I'd want to know about every single week. We would have that outside of the Community Development Group and into the mayor's office directly. That's the job part and the economic development piece. I also believe that we really need to make sure we have safe neighborhoods. We had a company that moved here 2 months ago, 27 high-paying jobs. They were all engineers that moved here from Washington, and I believe we had one of those 27 transplants decide to live in Ogden because they just weren't so sure about the neighborhoods and the education. And so making sure we have neighborhoods they want to live in, grow up in, have their kids grow old in, I think it's important. And part of that is home ownership. We need to stabilize some of these neighborhoods and really sell what Ogden is and the unique, eclectic neighborhoods with their rich, amazing history.
Would you like your minute?
Yes.
Please, feel free.
I want my minute. I think that I think that it's also very critical to remember that Ogden City needs to become a place where business can better do business. It needs to be a place where we create an atmosphere where business can thrive. And part of my experience on the city council has given me some insight into some of the things in the structure of the city that need to be changed in terms of fixing the permitting issues and problems that we have. Gathering together the organization of the city so that we have a mentality change inside the city so that we're actually promoting and creating an atmosphere where people want to help the businesses as opposed to check off a checklist of things that they need to do in order to pass the test. And I think that change is very critical also.
Thank you, sir. Question 3, Mr. Caldwell. If elected, will you lower taxes or fees?
Everybody always wants to lower taxes and fees. I think the way you do that and the promise you make to the citizens is that you will raise revenues. That's the realistic part of this. If you can bring in additional sales tax, we've seen some great economic development that I think has us headed in the right direction. That's very important. Lowering taxes and fees is the goal of any elected officials we come in. One of the things I've worked really hard in the past 10 years is the tourism piece of this. Bring people into this community. Tourism provides $702 of tax relief per family in the state of Utah. Utah Office of Tourism did some numbers on that 3 years ago, and improving those types of revenue streams really will help ease the tax burden on the local residents. So bringing in and raising those revenues. I've been involved in that in a big way in the past. I was president and CEO of the Convention Visitors Bureau, and I've been board chair on that for a number of different years, and we understand how that works. We've moved the meter in a big way there, and we'll continue to stay focused on that and other ways to bring more revenue into the community. So I don't look to raise taxes. I don't look to raise fees. I look to make those streamlined and understandable. As I've met with different business owners, they worry about stormwater rates and some of the other things that they can't make sense of. There was a story a month ago about different people in different parts of the community being charged different levels. So I'd look to make those transparent and clear, but I'd really work to raise revenue so that we didn't have to look at other fees or taxes.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Stevenson.
I think my commitment is in a couple of different areas. The first is property taxes, and it is my intent to decrease property taxes. It's the property tax rate that I would decrease. In addition to that, as far as the fees of the city, there are a lot of fees, and sometimes, most of the time, the fees are directed at those people who are using the service. And so I generally would look to fees as representing paying for the cost of the services that are being rendered. When the situation is such that people are paying too much in fees, for example, in the water and sewer system, I think there are some ambiguities there that need to be changed. We're actually on the City Council right now reviewing some of those ambiguities to identify areas where we need to decrease those water and sewer rates. And I'm intent on cleaning up those ambiguities and decreasing those rates where they're unfair and they're not meeting the service needs. I think that, and the question then is, if I'm going to decrease taxes, where does the money come from? And it's clear that what has to happen is we have to have the economic growth. I think that's number one. It's the very important aspect of where does the revenue come from. We have to increase the business revenue into the city, and that comes from retail and the sales tax revenue. And being successful in that arena, redeveloping the downtown and increasing the property values on those properties that are now not worth as much, developed, they're worth more. And there is some revenue to be brought into the city that will help to either increase services for the community and the citizens or decrease their taxes. And it's my intent to do a little bit of both.
Mr. Caldwell, a rebuttal?
Well, I think there's some similarity there. Again, I've got the organization I was president of last year. We were able to attract $5 million in additional revenue that came through just the Goal Foundation and supporting these different events. So I've got experience in doing that, and it's a big lever that I'll certainly continue to work on. The transparency piece, I think, is very, very critical regardless of what happens with property taxes and fees, and if values increase or decrease. I think it's very critical people understand where those values have been set and where their tax dollars are going and how they're being spent. So we'd look to really take back the veil a little bit and make that extremely transparent.
Thank you very much. Our fourth question, Mr. Stevenson, to you first, please. What is your plan to make our neighborhoods safer? It's been mentioned a couple of times already.
Yeah, it's a critical element of the plan. I mean, not just our neighborhoods, but our downtown area as well. I think we can include in that. I think I really have three specific things that I think are very important in this plan. Our current administration, the police department, they do a very good job at enforcing the law. They really do. And people know that our police department does a good job at enforcing those laws. What we need a little bit of work on is we need to improve our community policing department. And my goal in terms of the community policing department is to reassess the priorities within the department. Right now there are 8 officers in the community policing department, and they service 8 areas across the city. And each of them is responsible for one of these areas. So they're responsible to connect with the citizens and deal with drug houses in the area and bad landlords and all those sorts of issues in the neighborhoods. And we need to make sure that when we reprioritize in that department, that we're maybe taking something from traffic and giving more to the community policing department so we can decrease those, increase the number of community policing officers, decrease the service areas, and thus increasing the service level that they can give to the citizens. And that connection, which will create a feeling with the citizens that the police do care about the things that are happening in our neighborhoods and helping them to deal with issues. In addition to that, we have to deal with, we have to make sure that our police department has the tools they need to do their jobs, that their equipment is better than it is right now. Right now, our police department's dealing with cars that, are in the shop as much as they're on the road. And I think that, that's a problem. And what we need to do is we need to make sure that over a period of time that we increase the quality of our equipment, so that our police officers have an advantage over the criminal. And in addition to that, they need improved technology. And I'll look for any way that I can and support improved technology and information within our police department that gives our officers an advantage.
That was right exactly at 2 minutes. Did you time that?
I did not.
Oh, nicely done. Mr. Caldwell.
Like a perfect pump at the gas station. Rare, but you get them sometimes. Safer neighborhoods was the question. Studies have shown that 60% of home ownership is what will stabilize a neighborhood. We've got neighborhoods right now that have 80% in the rental pool. And people that, the largest personal investment I've made and most of us in this community will make is in our home. If you own that home, you're going to be very careful about what goes on. You're going to, if something's in your neighborhood, you're not going to, in your front yard that you don't like, you're not going to wish it away or pull the blinds, hope it disappears. If you own that asset, you're going to be more willing to get into these community policing groups, call the police, get involved, and be active in your neighborhood. So there are a couple of different programs right now to increase home ownership. Home Sweet Ogden, the Good Landlord Program, and Own in Ogden, I think are really critical pieces that we continue to leverage and support. I would look to move code enforcement into the police department as well. That would be an additional tool they would have so they could go knock on the doors of some of these drug houses and gang homes and have reasons to talk to these people and get them to clean up. We also have some unique technologies the police department have right now. I've been through the Real-Time Crime Center with Chief Greiner. They bring in Google Earth and a whole bunch of different technologies that are free and available, but it integrates databases and tools that I think get us to proactively police. So getting I think police have some real unique tools they can bring to bear right now. Getting them out of their cars and into these neighborhoods with increased home ownership is, I think, the real key to providing safer neighborhoods. And owner occupancy is critical to that, and I'd look to work with those three programs we've mentioned earlier and the police department with the code enforcement to make sure the problem spots are taken care of.
Mr. Stevenson, an additional minute?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of areas in the city that have very high rental rate. There's a lot of rentals, and I think that it's probably unrealistic to say that we're going to boot all these rentals out and try and make them home-owned properties. So we do need to focus in on the problem at hand, and that would be dealing with slumlords, for example, and I define a slumlord as someone who doesn't take care of their property and they don't care about the people that are their tenants. And those are problems in our neighborhood that I'll focus on and make sure that I find every way possible, whether it's building codes or zoning violations or anything that I can do to make it, or business licensing, to make it as expensive as possible for these folks to live in Ogden. And in addition to that, I think that it's important that we work with the Good Landlord Program, which is designed to improve tenants, and it's designed to help landlords take care of their properties and know what to do when they're dealing with tenants. And I think that it's critical that we work with these groups and we do everything we can in order to make it work, because that will improve our neighborhood, make it safer.
Thank you very much. I was trying to keep track here, and I've lost track. Who answered that last question first?
I just rebutted, so I would have gone first. Yeah.
That's a good way to figure that out, isn't it? Mr. Caldwell, a question for you then. What kind of retail do we need downtown, and how will you go about to bring about that particular type of retail?
Well, I think we've certainly had a good start. What used to be defined by eclectic, unique retail. You can find big box any place. Riverdale has done a great job of jumping in front of everybody with lots of big box stores. I'd like to see some eclectic retail. We've seen a number of stores come in. We've seen recreation outlets come in and done really well on the east side of Washington. IROC they've retooled their brand, and they're doing some good things on the east side of Washington. We've got a lot of unique opportunities here for unique retail to bring people downtown. One of the things we've focused on, and I think it's critical to building retail, is bringing a critical mass of people downtown. So you have people that are coming by these storefronts and window shopping, and they know that it's down there. And we've worked hard to bring those people downtown by creating different unique events and bringing that energy and buzz to be part of what's happening down there. The Junction's great, but it's easy to park your car right there and go to the movie or go to the restaurant and then get in your car and not have the opportunity to go walk in front of these unique storefronts and to be a part of what's happening down there. So I think it's being unique, not something that you can just find in any big box store is critical. That's one of the Ogden's, I think, great strengths. It was one of ours in our past history. It's something we can bring back. Unique retail and bringing people downtown is what's going to make that retail successful, and we've worked hard at creating different events to do that. I think you need to look at both of those. You can't just put the store there and hope or wish that they'll come. You've got to give them reasons to come down. And we've seen that start to build slowly, and I think there's some great momentum we'll have. Some downtown residential living, too, will also stabilize the retail opportunities. And as the Riverfront Project and some of those others come to fruition and those apartments around the Temple get full, I think that residential ownership group down there will help frequent these stores and help make them successful.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Stevenson.
As I've talked with lots of folks knocking on doors, I think the consensus is we need more places to buy shoes and clothes and apparel in Ogden City, and of course there's a lot of other needs, and I think that it is important that we know what to focus on. I think in order to make it happen, first of all, we need to know the types of businesses that we want to go after, and then it's the work of going after those businesses, inviting them to come, giving them reasons to be here. And I think it's not only the downtown. Having some original, unique, and a few nice retail anchors in the downtown, I think, is very important. But we also need to do more than that. We need to create retail corridors that will help us to compete with Riverdale and Layton, and deal with problems or potential risks like 2700 North in North Ogden. That's just a new road they just pounded through a bunch of farmland, which is a risk to us. We risk that they're going to build out a bunch of retail there and make a new corridor on the north side of us. So we need to work hard in order to develop some big box retail along Wall Avenue, along that west side, and along 12th Street. And deal with the issues, for heaven's sakes, of Fred Meyer that's been sitting there for a long time, and Stop and Shop. Those are issues that need to be dealt with. And when we create that, when we bring in a couple of additional successes like Winco and Walmart, then the businesses will start to come and flow because of that critical mass of business. So I think we have to look at it holistically, and it is important that we focus on the right types of businesses.
Thank you. 1 minute, Mr. Caldwell.
I think there are a lot of different ideas for retail. Two of the keys we are missing in the downtown area right now to get people to want to live and stay down there, we need a good flagship bookstore. People really have missed that as I've talked with different people in the community, and you talk about places you want to live and recreate. A big bookstore can be a real magnet in a community. We need one of those, and it would be great to see a unique grocery in downtown Ogden. As we went through the East Central neighborhoods, they've talked about some of the grocery opportunities that they had, and the Whole Foods type of stores and some others that they can walk to. Grocery stores you can walk to. You don't feel like you have to get in your car and drive to, or two of the key retail pieces that we're missing downtown right now, and I'd work hard on those. Also agree that there's a critical need to have that Fred Meyer building and some of those on the 12th Street addressed. There's a broken window psychology that comes with that I think we really need to get in front of.
Thank you. Last question for the evening, and Mr. Stevenson, we'll start with you. Ogden is a multicultural and very diverse city. Is it ever possible that every single citizen would feel part of the city, and how do you propose to do that?
Well, I don't know if I could honestly say that every single citizen feels a part, but I do think that certainly the vast majority of them can feel included, and there's a lot of things that we can do in order to make that happen. And I think part of it means that we need to be careful as we focus on neighborhoods that are being revitalized to take the needs of different populations into mind and into account. If we go through and use programs like the Own in Ogden program, then what we're doing is we're basically fixing the infrastructure and then turning around and selling that home as a market home and invite families to come into the community. That stabilizes neighborhoods, and it helps to create a balance in neighborhoods. There's other things that we can do in communities themselves. I'm working on a project right now with the YMCA, who wants to build a community center next to Lincoln Elementary out in the north end of town. The idea of this community center would not only be to service the students at Lincoln Elementary School, but it would be a community center that would be open into the evening hours as well, and do English as a second language classes there, where they would, and other sorts of things where they would identify what the community needs are and help to overcome them. So connecting with other groups, nonprofits, and other organizations that can help us into the community is important. In addition, we've got our neighborhood council groups, which we haven't, the current administration hasn't focused too much on in recent years, as well as our neighborhood watch and community emergency response teams, which are good ways to get out into the community and get people engaged and involved. The very best way to create a diverse group of people that get along and have something invested in Ogden is to get them engaged and working on something, common interests. And I'll work in all those areas in order to make that happen.
Thank you. Mr. Caldwell.
Diversity is a great part of this community. I think it will continue to be an amazing part of the community moving forward. One of the things we've talked at length about, and I've worked hard on in the last number of years, is creating opportunities for them to get involved. They may not choose to take advantage of those opportunities, but the needs in the Ron Clair area are different than in the East Central area and the East Bench and Shadow Valley. All of those people that live in those different areas need to be represented, and you do that by creating community councils and giving them opportunities to plug into what's happening with the city and for their voices to be heard. We've got a big Latin population here, but if you drill into that, you have 10 to 12 different subsets of that. So you can't paint with a broad brush. You need to find the leaders in some of these churches and some of these active organizations and bring them in and give them an opportunity to address their concerns, make sure they're being listened to, and go into those communities to make sure that you're available. I think a lot of people in the community see the administration as being unreachable or with their own priorities and not those of the city in mind. I think getting people involved in those community associations and councils so they know their voices are being heard, and you go into those communities to be with them is the way you address diversity and give them an opportunity to be a part of the city. A lot of people won't take it, but you can always, if they want to take that one step, it's narrowing the gap, and you do that through building real strong community associations.
Thank you, sir. One more minute, Mr. Stevenson.
You know, what also has to happen is over the last several years, I've been working with a group over in the north end of town that was looking for ways in order to help engage their community. And one of the things that we came up with that was an important part of what needed to happen was people needed to understand what services the city had and what it was they had to do on their own, because oftentimes they would blame the city for things that were really their responsibility. And understanding what resources the city had to help them was very important. So we put together a community fair that ran for 2 years and basically invited the neighbors in this specific area, over in the Ron Clair area, to come and find out. All the city resources were there. They came and they talked, and there were a bunch of other booths, and it was great fun. The community loved it. And hopefully it will become a tradition over in that area of town. And I think that it's important that we focus on the needs of the community. So we've got also community plans that we do all over the community that bring ideas from the citizens about how their communities can be improved. And it's very specific. In fact, the Ron Clair community is now the Mount Lewis community because they chose a new name. So I think it's important that we listen to our citizens and that we help develop our communities as the needs arise.
Thank you very much, and thanks for answering the questions that I had for you this evening. We started out with Mr. Stevenson. We will close with Mr. Caldwell. If you would mind giving a closing statement, followed by Mr. Stevenson, and then we'll let these good folks clap for you one more time. Mike?
Well, I appreciate that. In closing, for me, I've spent the last 10 years helping to create a community we all want to live, work, and play in. I've been in front of the school district. I've got my kids in the school district here. My daughters are 8 and 10. I really look to make this a place they want to grow old in, go to school in, and have opportunities in. I believe that creating community change like that is a lot different than casting votes or being in a passive position. I have been in the trenches doing that for the last number of years. It takes a community to get engaged. I've got the experience in doing that. As I mentioned earlier, I was president last year of a group that had to organize 16,000 volunteer hours, and that gave people pride in place and equity in their community, and I know how to do that. I've been very involved in that. Through the positions at Weaver County, as I mentioned, I have the 3 different departments and a $5 million budget, over 50 employees we've managed. I've got the experience in managing big groups of people. I also have the experience in managing big volunteer groups, which is the critical part of as we've talked about, changing neighborhoods and getting people invested. That type of vision and drilling into the community and getting people to buy in is critical. And I've got the experience and background and leadership in doing that, and I've asked this entire time to be judged by the results I've produced in the past 10 years instead of the ideas I've presented, and if everybody does that, I think the choice is clear. And then I appreciate everybody's vote for Mike Caldwell on November 8th.
Thank you, sir. Brandon?
Well, I guess I wanted to thank everyone for this opportunity and thank Mike for being here. We've done a few of these, and I don't know if they're getting easier, but it is kind of an enjoyable experience to be able to sit and talk about the things that are important. And I think what's really important to me is it's important that Ogden become a place where me and my family, where we want to live. My kids also attend Ogden City Schools, and there's a lot of wonderful things in Ogden that should draw many, many people here, that should create a community, a vision where this is a community where people want to live. As I've served on the City Council in the last 8 years, I've been involved in most every major decision that has pushed the city forward in terms of economic development, in terms of the junction, in terms of Winco, in terms of the River Project area. And I know what it takes in order to get those projects through. And sometimes there's controversy, and sometimes the controversy stops projects from happening. And I think that it's very important that we have someone that understands that and that can push through. I have the business experience and the acumen, the skill set. I also manage groups of people, and I understand how to manage, and I think that Ogden City can be improved. It can be more effective and efficient in the things that it does, and it's my goal to make it move better and run smoother and become a place where not only businesses want to come and be, but people want to come and live with their families in our neighborhoods because they love it, because it's the most wonderful place around, and because, gosh, everybody wants to be in Ogden. So that's why I'm running for mayor, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I'll ask for your vote on November 8th. Thanks.
Okay, now we can end the evening the way we started. Let them have it. And we do thank you. Brandon Stevenson and Mike Caldwell, thanks so much for joining us. There are a million things that we could all be doing tonight, but we're here and we're all interested in Ogden moving forward, and that's the most important pressing issue here tonight. We also want to thank the Imagination Company, Bill Francis and his staff, for making this possible on Ogden Channel 17. You don't realize what a valuable asset this station is. Thanks very much for joining us. Until next time, have a very pleasant good evening.